New CEO fired me for visiting my sick aunt, said we can't prioritize personal tragedies. My world shattered when she uttered those words. We can't prioritize personal tragedies. Hospice. That's where I found her, my aunt, frail and fading. And my job? Gone. Was it just a cold, heartless business decision? Or was something far more sinister brewing beneath the surface? Did my family history somehow mark me for destruction? What if that so-called personal tragedy wasn't so personal after all? Stay tuned. This is a story of family, betrayal, and a fight for something much bigger than my job. You won't believe what I discovered. The rain hammered against the windows of the office, a fitting soundtrack to the storm brewing inside me. I stared at the termination letter, the cold, impersonal words blurring through the tears that welled in my eyes. Restructuring, it claimed. Budgetary constraints. Lies. All lies. How could they do this? I had dedicated 5 years of my life to this company, pouring my heart and soul into every project. And for what? To be discarded like yesterday's news? The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, a constant, irritating hum that mirrored the anxiety building in my chest. I packed my desk, each item a painful reminder of what I was losing. A framed photo of my Aunt Sarah smiled back at me. The photo was taken just a few months before her diagnosis, her eyes sparkling with life. The morning I received the call that Sarah had been admitted to hospice, I hadn't hesitated. I booked the first flight to Cincinnati, leaving a message for Ms. Albright, the new CEO, explaining the situation. Family emergency, I'd said, my voice tight with emotion. My aunt is very ill. I expected some understanding, maybe even a word of sympathy. Instead, I got a cold, curt email. Keep me updated. Minimize disruption. Later that week, a crisp email appeared in my inbox. It was a meeting request, my performance review. It seemed insensitive given the circumstances, but I knew the importance of attending. I recall walking into Ms. Albright's office, the polished mahogany desk gleaming under the artificial light. Her expression was unreadable. "Have a seat," she said, her voice flat and devoid of warmth. She shuffled through a stack of papers, avoiding my gaze. "We've been reviewing your performance," she began, "and we've decided to make some changes." My stomach dropped. I knew what was coming. "I understand that you took some unexpected time off," she continued. Her eyes, "While we appreciate your dedication to your family, we can't prioritize personal tragedies over the needs of the company. Therefore, effective immediately, your employment is terminated." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Personal tragedies. Was that all my aunt's life was reduced to? A tragedy. I struggled to maintain my composure, my voice trembling as I spoke. But I've always been a dedicated employee. My performance reviews have always been excellent. Ms. Albright simply shrugged, her face an impassive mask. "Things change," she said, her voice cold. "The company is moving in a new direction." As I left her office, I felt a wave of anger washing over me. How could she be so callous, so heartless? I felt utterly betrayed. What would you have done in my shoes? Back in my apartment, I was drowning in self-pity. The takeout I had ordered sat untouched on the coffee table, my appetite gone. The television blared, but I couldn't focus on the images flickering across the screen. My phone buzzed, a text from Mark, my boyfriend. "Hey babe, how's your aunt?" I stared at the message, a knot forming in my stomach. Mark had been strangely distant lately. He'd been working late, missing dinners, offering vague excuses. Was it just my paranoia, fueled by the day's events, or was something else going on? That night, sleep eluded me. I tossed and turned, replaying the conversation with Ms. Albright in my head. Something didn't add up. It wasn't just about my absence. There was something else, something she wasn't telling me. It had been years since I'd last been there, and the memories flooded back as I walked through the front door. The familiar scent of lavender and old books filled the air. Everything was exactly as I remembered it. a time capsule of my childhood. While rummaging through a box of old photographs, I stumbled upon a stack of documents. They were old, yellowed with age, but the words leaped off the page. Environmental impact assessment, groundwater contamination, confidential. My heart pounded in my chest. What was this? I began to read, and as I did, a horrifying truth began to emerge. Sarah had worked for the same company I had decades ago, and she'd been fired. Why? Because she had discovered that the company was illegally dumping toxic waste, contaminating the local water supply. I remembered Sarah telling me about it when I was a kid, but I thought it was just a cautionary tale. The company I dedicated 5 years to? This was beyond ironic. This was a betrayal. Sarah, her voice always firm, her spirit always unyielding, her moral compass was always unwavering. I needed to know what had happened to the investigation. I scanned the documents again. There it was, a memo detailing Sarah's dismissal, signed by none other than Ms. Albright's father, who was then the CEO. But this was odd. Sarah's notes were precise, almost too good for a small-town consultant. I remember when my mother shared stories of how Sarah's career took off, and then plummeted around the same time as I had been born. Was I getting myself into too much trouble investigating this? Sarah's notes detailed dates and amounts of contamination from the early 90s to 2000. She was so good, so thorough. How had they gotten away with it? My phone buzzed. It was Mark. "Can we talk tonight?" he texted. "It's important." The knot in my stomach tightened. What could he possibly want to talk about? What would you do, knowing your boyfriend wanted to talk? That evening, Mark arrived at my apartment, his face pale and drawn. He avoided my gaze, fidgeting with his hands. I need to tell you something," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. I braced myself for the worst. "I've been offered a job in another city," he said. "A really good opportunity." I stared at him, numb with shock. Another betrayal. He was leaving me, just like that. After 5 years, he's just leaving? But the worst was yet to come. "It's with Albright Industries," he stammered. "Ms. Albright offered it to me personally." I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. It all clicked into place. Mark's late nights, his distant behavior, the sudden job offer. He was in on it. He knew about the firing. He knew about Sarah. He was working with the enemy. "You knew," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "You knew about my aunt. You knew about the illegal dumping. You knew they were going to fire me, and you didn't say anything." Mark hung his head, his shoulders slumped with guilt. I didn't know about your aunt," he mumbled, "but I knew about the job. I needed it. My family, they're struggling." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He was choosing a job, a paycheck, over me. Over our relationship, over the truth. "Get out," I said, my voice cold and hard. "Get out of my apartment. Get out of my life." He didn't argue. He simply turned and walked out the door, leaving me alone with my shattered heart and my burning anger. I felt so manipulated, so used. I spent hours researching Albright Industries, digging through public records, searching for any mention of the environmental violations. I found nothing. The company had successfully buried the evidence, erasing any trace of their wrongdoing. But I knew the truth, and I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I contacted a lawyer, an old friend of Sarah's. His name was Robert, and he specialized in environmental law. I told him everything, showing him the documents I had found. Robert listened intently, his expression growing increasingly grim. "This is serious," he said. "If these documents are authentic, we can file a lawsuit against Albright Industries. We can expose their crimes." There was an audible creak in the wood floors as he leaned closer to me. But there was a catch. Robert explained that proving the authenticity of the documents would be difficult. They were old, and the company would undoubtedly deny everything. We would need more evidence. We would need a witness, I knew what I had to do. I had to talk to Sarah. I went back to Cincinnati, to the hospice, my heart heavy with worry. Sarah was weaker than I remembered, her eyes clouded with pain. But as I began to tell her about my discovery, a spark of recognition flickered in her eyes. "They fired you too?" she whispered, her voice frail. "Just like they fired me?" I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "They're still covering it up," I said. "They're still poisoning the water." Sarah squeezed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "You have to fight them," she said. "You have to expose them, for the sake of everyone." She was fading fast, but her conviction was as strong as ever. "I'll help you," she whispered. I remember a hidden file in the old office, a copy of the original report. It's behind the... Her voice trailed off, and her eyes closed. She was gone. I sat there for a long time, holding her hand, grieving her loss. But I knew what I had to do. I had to find that hidden file. But where? The old office building had been demolished years ago. It was a dead end. Or so I thought. Back in my apartment, I stared at the photographs I had taken of Sarah's documents. Something caught my eye. A small detail in the background of one of the photos. A building in the distance. It looked familiar. I zoomed in, my heart racing. It was the old Albright Industries headquarters, the building that had been demolished. But something was off. The angle was wrong. The building seemed closer. I realized that Sarah's old office hadn't been in the main headquarters building. It had been in a smaller adjacent building, a building that was still standing. It was now a storage facility, but the address matched the address Sarah had written on one of her notes. I knew this was a long shot, but I had nothing to lose. I drove to the storage facility, my hands shaking with anticipation. The facility manager was a gruff, middle-aged man with a skeptical look in his eyes. I told him I was looking for some old documents that might have been stored there years ago. He rolled his eyes, but agreed to let me look around. I was now trespassing onto his property. I spent hours searching through dusty boxes, my hopes dwindling with each passing minute. Just as I was about to give up, I saw it. A box labeled Albright Industries Archive. My heart leaped. I opened the box, my hands trembling. Inside, nestled among old company records and forgotten files, was a manila folder, labeled Project Evergreen Confidential. I opened the folder, and there it was. The original environmental impact assessment. The report that Sarah had risked her career to expose. The report that Albright Industries had tried to bury. Proof, concrete proof. As I clutched the file, I noticed a small note attached to the front. It was in Sarah's handwriting. For when the truth must come out, it read, "Protect the children." I had everything I needed. I contacted Robert, and we immediately filed a lawsuit against Albright Industries. The news spread like wildfire. The media descended upon the company, demanding answers. Ms. Albright was forced to resign, her reputation ruined. But the story didn't end there. During the investigation, it was revealed that Mark had been working with Ms. Albright all along. He had been tasked with gathering information about me, about Sarah, about anything that could be used to discredit us. He had betrayed me, my family, and his own integrity for a paycheck. How could I have been so blind? The trial was long and arduous, but in the end, justice prevailed. Albright Industries was found guilty of environmental crimes, fined millions of dollars, and forced to clean up the contaminated water supply. Sarah's name was, but amidst the victory, I struggled with a moral dilemma. Should I forgive Mark? He had betrayed me in the worst possible way, but he had also shown remorse. He had claimed he only wanted to provide for his family. I thought long and hard about it, weighing the pros and cons. Revenge would be sweet, but would it truly bring me happiness? Or would it only perpetuate the cycle of pain and betrayal? In the end, I decided to forgive him. Not because he deserved it, but because I deserved to move on. I couldn't let his actions define me. I focused on rebuilding my life. I found a new job with a company that valued integrity and ethics. I became an advocate for environmental protection, fighting to prevent similar tragedies from happening again. It wasn't much, but it was my way of giving back to the community. I still miss Sarah every day, but her memory inspires me to keep fighting for what is right. She taught me the importance of standing up for the truth, even when it's difficult. Her legacy lives on, not just in my heart, but in the clean water and healthy environment that she fought so hard to protect. And as for Ms. Albright, her career is over. Her reputation is tarnished. She lost everything. But I don't feel any satisfaction in her downfall. I just feel sadness. Sadness for the choices she made, the path she chose, sadness for the lives she damaged. I realized that true justice wasn't about revenge. It was about healing, about rebuilding, about creating a better future. It was about honoring Sarah's memory by making the world a little bit brighter, a little bit cleaner, a little bit more just. And me? I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. I started my own environmental consulting firm. We're small, but we're making a difference, one project at a time. We help businesses implement sustainable practices, and we advocate for policies that protect our planet. It's rewarding work, and it gives me a sense of purpose. And Mark? He reached out a few months ago. He wanted to apologize. I listened, but I made it clear that we could never be together again. The trust was broken, but I wished him well. I truly did. It felt freeing. Sometimes I still think about Ms. Albright. I wonder if she ever regrets her actions. I wonder if she ever thinks about Sarah. I wonder if she ever learned anything from her mistakes. Maybe someday she'll find redemption, but that's up to her. What would you have done? Could you have forgiven Mark? Could you have moved on? Tell me what you'd choose in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more true tales of workplace betrayal and the fight for justice. Thanks for watching. Sometimes, late at night, the silence in my apartment is deafening. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant sirens, they all fade into insignificance compared to the thoughts that swirl in my head. Did I do the right thing? Was there another way? Should I have pushed harder, dug deeper? The rain is back tonight, drumming a melancholic rhythm against the window pane. I pull the curtains closed, trying to shut out the world, but the memories persist. I remember the day I testified in court, facing Ms. Albright across the room. Her eyes, once so cold and calculating, were now filled with a mixture of defiance and desperation. She still refused to admit any wrongdoing, blaming her father, the company culture, anything but herself. It was infuriating. What would you do in a court case like that? The judge questioned her thoroughly, however she didn't flinch. I watched her, knowing that Sarah would have been disgusted. Her composure was unnerving, a performance clearly built for the court. It was a charade. Her responses were meticulously crafted, deflective, and devoid of genuine remorse. She painted herself as a victim of circumstance, a mere pawn in a game orchestrated by others. But I saw through the facade. I saw the ambition, the ruthlessness, the willingness to sacrifice anything for power. My testimony was difficult, emotional. I recounted Sarah's story, my voice trembling as I described her dedication, her courage, her ultimate betrayal. I presented the documents, the hidden file, the irrefutable evidence of Albright Industries' crimes. Robert's legal team was very good. They knew exactly what to ask and when to ask it. But the hardest part was facing Mark. He was called as a witness for the defense. He looked gaunt, his eyes filled with regret. He avoided my gaze, his voice barely audible as he answered the questions. I could see the conflict raging within him. The battle between his loyalty to Ms. Albright and his conscience. He didn't lie, not exactly. But he carefully omitted certain details, downplaying his role in the cover-up. He testified he had only needed a job, and that he wanted to help his family. It was a pathetic excuse, but I knew he was telling the truth. After the trial, I received a letter from Mark. He apologized again, expressing his deep regret for his actions. He claimed he understood if I could never forgive him, but he wanted me to know that he had learned from his mistakes. The letter was heartfelt, sincere, but it couldn't undo the past. It couldn't erase the pain. I filed it away, along with all the other memories of that time. Sometimes I wonder if I will ever truly be free of it. The other day, I was at a farmer's market, buying some fresh produce. A young woman approached me, her eyes wide with admiration. Are you the woman who exposed Albright Industries?" she asked. I nodded, feeling a flicker of embarrassment. She grabbed my hand, her grip firm. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for what you did. My family, right? We live near the old Albright plant. We were getting sick. We didn't know why. But thanks to you, they're cleaning it up. You saved our lives." Her words hit me hard. I had helped people, truly helped them. It was a small victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. What would you have felt if someone approached you to thank you? I went back to my apartment, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. I looked at the photo of Sarah on my desk, her smile radiating warmth and wisdom. I knew she would have been proud. She would have been proud of me for fighting for the truth, for standing up to injustice. Her memory is a constant reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope can prevail. A little while ago, a friend called me, an acquaintance I had met through work. Her company was dealing with pollution, and her boss wanted her to turn a blind eye. She wanted my advice. It was so good to hear someone else was willing to stand their ground. This feels like more than a moral victory, but a sign of the change that is coming. She will not let the boss get away with it. I advised her of what had happened to me and the steps she needed to take. But I am always aware of how alone one can feel. It is such a lonely path. She is now going through the same steps, the sleepless nights, the anxiety, the feeling that she is fighting a losing battle. I'm there for her every step of the way, because I know what it's like. I'm grateful for the experience. The experience has led to a greater calling, supporting other environmentalists. I've found my true calling. It might be hard at times, but I will never turn back. I refuse to let these types of events happen again. People's health should come first, not money. I never thought I'd be here. Looking back to the moment I got fired, I have so many feelings. The surprise, confusion, despair, and anger. If I could go back, I don't think I would change a thing. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to find a stronger self. This morning, I woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside my window. It was a beautiful day, the sun shining brightly, the sky a clear blue. But even on the most beautiful days, the shadows of the past still linger. I was at a conference last week, speaking about my experience with Albright Industries. A man approached me after my presentation, his face etched with concern. He introduced himself as a former employee of a different company, one that was also involved in environmental wrongdoing. He told me that he had been hesitant to speak out, fearing retaliation, but after hearing my story, he felt inspired to come forward. "What do I do?" he asked, his voice trembling. "How do I fight them?" I shared my experience, the importance of gathering evidence, seeking legal counsel, and finding allies. I emphasized the need to protect himself and his family, to be prepared for the backlash that would inevitably come. But most importantly, I told him to trust his instincts, to do what he believed was right, regardless of the consequences. Seeing his face light up reminded me of the conversation with Sarah. It was the same spark, the same unwavering conviction. He's making some progress on his case. He's found similar documents I discovered. It's not an easy case, but he's fighting it. It's really about his career at this point. It's already over. I felt a sense of connection to him, a shared understanding of the challenges and sacrifices involved in fighting for justice. What would you tell a person in his situation, Lately, I've been thinking a lot about Mark. He's been trying to contact me again, sending emails, leaving voicemails. I haven't responded. I don't know if I ever will. Part of me wants to forgive him, to believe that he was truly remorseful. But another part of me is still angry, still hurt by his betrayal. I saw him a few weeks ago at a grocery store. He looked different, older, more worn down. He saw me too, and his eyes widened with a mixture of surprise and regret. He started to walk towards me, but I quickly turned away, my heart pounding in my chest. I don't know what I would have said to him. I don't know if I could have faced him. The memory haunts me at times. What would you have done in my position at the grocery store? Sometimes I wonder what my life would be like if I had never visited Sarah in the hospital, if I had never been fired, if I had never uncovered the truth about Albright Industries. Would I be happier? Would I be more successful? Would I be less burdened by the past? But then I remember the young woman at the farmer's market, the man at the conference, and all the other people who have been affected by my actions. And I realize that everything happens for a reason, that even the darkest of times can lead to something good. The experience has transformed me, made me stronger, more resilient, more determined. I am no longer afraid to stand up for what I believe in, to fight for justice, to protect those who are vulnerable. The world needs more people like Sarah, people who are willing to risk everything for the sake of others. And I am committed to carrying on her legacy, to making a difference in the world, one small step at a time. As I look out the window at the setting sun, I feel a sense of hope. The future is uncertain, but I am ready to face it. I am ready to embrace the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. I am ready to continue fighting for a better world, and I know that Sarah will be watching over me, guiding me, and inspiring me every step of the way. This morning, I woke up to an email. A local news outlet was releasing a video about the illegal dumping. It's been so long since the trial. After viewing the trailer, it focuses on Mark's involvement. It's bringing everything back up. All I want to do is be happy. I am not sure what I'm going to do. They've asked me to do an interview and appear in the video. If I do, everyone will know who I am. It might be too much attention. Perhaps I can get paid for it? No, that seems wrong. My life is starting to feel more normal again. I'm not sure I want to stir the pot. This video has the potential to help other people and hopefully prevent future incidents like Albright Industries. What would you do? How would you decide? The decision weighed heavily on me. The news video about Mark. It felt like reopening a wound I had. I paced around my apartment, the floorboards creaking beneath my feet, the silence amplifying my thoughts. The apartment feels cold, almost haunted. A few days ago, there was a leak above. The management company sent someone to fix it. But my living room now smells like plaster. What a coincidence. The leak happened right after the news video was released. Maybe I'm being paranoid. I sat down on the sofa, staring blankly at the television screen. Should I do the interview? Should I relive the pain, the betrayal, the struggle? Or should I stay silent, protect myself from the media frenzy, and try to move on? Robert called me, his voice serious. They're going to portray Mark as a victim, he said. They're going to say he was manipulated by Albright Industries, that he was just trying to provide for his family. He knew what that meant. The focus will be diverted from Ms. Albright and what she did. My anger flared. Mark wasn't a victim. He was a participant. He made a choice. He betrayed me, my aunt, and his own integrity. They need to know the truth, I said, my voice trembling. They need to know what really happened. Robert sighed. I know, he said, but are you ready for that? Are you ready to face the scrutiny, the criticism, the judgment? He was right. It wouldn't be easy. The media would dissect every aspect of my life, my relationship with Mark, my motivations, my flaws. I would be exposed, vulnerable. What would you choose, knowing that much exposure awaited you? But then I thought about Sarah. I thought about her courage, her unwavering commitment to the truth, and I knew what I had to do. I'll do it, I said, my voice firm. I'll do the interview. The news crew arrived at my apartment, setting up their cameras and lights. I felt nervous, but I tried to remain calm. I told them my story from beginning to end, recounting the events with as much detail and honesty as possible. I talked about Sarah, her fight for justice, and her ultimate sacrifice. I talked about Mark, his betrayal, and the pain it caused. And I talked about Miss Albright, her ruthlessness, and her disregard for the environment. As I spoke, the tears streamed down my face. It was painful to relive the past, but it was also cathartic. It felt like the interview aired a few days later. The response was overwhelming. People from all over the world reached out to me, expressing their support and admiration. Many shared their own stories of workplace betrayal, environmental injustice, and the struggle to find justice. The video went viral. Mark's reputation was ruined, even more than before. He was attacked on social media, and it has impacted his ability to find a job. I even saw a few people posting pictures of his house. That seems extreme. In this instance, I feel sorry for him, but it's a small price to pay compared to what Miss Albright did. Some of the people had claimed that I should have left Mark alone, or that I was just trying to get attention. However, that wasn't the case at all. They don't know the entire story, how I sacrificed my career to help Sarah, how I struggled to stay afloat after getting fired. People online can be so cruel. I am fortunate to have developed a strong will after these events. What would you do about those people? Since I was trending online, my consulting business has also boomed. Everyone wants to support my cause. I've had to turn down projects. I never expected all of this. I have made a point to donate a third of my profits to cleaning the environment. The past is truly behind me. One night, I received an unexpected visitor at my door. It was Mark. He looked even more gaunt than I remembered, his eyes filled with despair. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice barely audible. I hesitated, but I knew I couldn't turn him away. I invited him inside. He sat down on the sofa, avoiding my gaze. I just wanted to say, "I'm sorry," he said, his voice trembling. "I know it doesn't mean much, but I truly am sorry for everything." I looked at him, trying to gauge his sincerity. "Why now?" I asked. "Why are you apologizing now?" He sighed. "Because I've lost everything," he said. "My job, my friends, my reputation. I'm alone, and I know it's my fault. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, and I'll never forgive myself." I listened to him, my heart aching with a mixture of pity and anger. I could see the pain in his eyes, the regret etched on his face. I knew he was telling the truth. He had lost everything. But did he deserve forgiveness? Could I ever truly forgive him? What would you say to him? I looked at Mark, really looked at him. His eyes, once bright with ambition, were now hollowed out by regret. He was a broken man, and in that moment I realized that holding on to my anger wouldn't heal me. It would only chain me to the past. "I forgive you, Mark," I said, my voice soft but firm. "Not for you, but for me. I need to move on." A wave of relief washed over his face, and tears streamed down his cheeks. He didn't say anything, but his eyes spoke volumes. I knew that forgiving him wouldn't erase the past, but it would free me to build a better future. And that's exactly what I did. I continued to build my environmental consulting firm, making a real difference in the world. I found love again, with someone who valued my integrity and supported my dreams. And I learned that even the most painful betrayals can lead to unexpected blessings. The sun is setting now, casting a golden glow over my apartment.